Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thanks to Potato South Africa for giving me the opportunity to present here. For me, it's an interesting topic, so I hope that it's also quite interesting for you guys. I thought I'd start by sharing two landscapes. One that refers to the biocontrol landscape globally, and then secondly, the biostimulants landscape, just to have a holistic idea of what's actually happening within this industry segment. And if you have a look at this landscape here, there's 300 different companies that are depicted, of which 40% will have portfolios in multiple segments. I presented a slide similar to this last year that was mainly on the biostimulants, but in the biocontrol landscape specifically, compared to the previous iteration, 1/3 of the companies that are present here are new. And that's just depictive of how this industry is constantly changing, the new players that are coming into the forefront. And I think as we go through some of the next slides that I'm going to share with you, you're going to see the relevance of it and how it's going to become more and more prevalent within our industries and within our potato production systems. If we have a look at the biostimulants landscape, here there's 350 different companies, and this represents only a quarter, roughly, of what actually exists. And both these landscapes were presented last month at the Biological Summit that was conducted in California last month. And if you look at this biostimulants landscape, it's incredibly busy. And you can see there's a huge diversity in terms of the different segments, being your plant extracts that fall within the plant growth promotion, your nutrient uptake and plant vigor, nutrient availability and uptake for your biofertilizers, and then your nutrient uptake and your soil health segments. And once again, within the middle section, which is roughly 2/3 of the companies, they play across multiple segments. So it's a very complex industry space to be in. And it's a space that requires a lot of understanding from a scientific perspective to be able to transfer the knowledge across to a grower, and then from a data generation perspective to ensure that we have a surety that we're going to get the return on investment of these products that we expect for an industry. Now, over the past day and a half, there's been a lot of discussions that have taken place with regards to what the different drivers are, why are we sitting in the position we are, from regulatory constraints to the volatility in different climatic conditions and the abiotic stress factors that our crops face as a result of that, to the growing mandate for reduced chemical environments, consumers wanting to have lower residue limits on their productions, or at least their food produced under minimum residue conditions, a renewed focus on soil health, and of course the ever-present disease and pest pressures that we're facing. Now, if you have a look at the previous slides in terms of how many players are in the segment, as well as the different drivers that we're facing and that are becoming more prevalent and that are hitting us with much more ferocity, we can see why there's such a high investment in the companies and why so many new players are coming. Because the forecasted projection and growth is significant over the medium term. And everyone wants a cut of this pie. And if you have a look, this covers all segments from biopesticides, biofertilizers to biostimulants, the entire biologicals portfolio. And across the board, the projection is to grow at double digits. Now, this specific graph was taken from Armark, and if you use different consulting companies or analytical services, market analytics, you're going to find different figures, different projections, and different percentages growths. But predominantly, the agreeable figure is that the industry is growing by double digits. And we know that many other segments within agriculture are not growing. If we think of crop protection, the growth that we see in biologicals is not necessarily going to diminish what we see from crop protection, but it's going to be in addition. It's going to be something that we can add to our portfolios to be able to better manage the conditions that we're currently facing. Where's this investment going? Well, there's a lot of ongoing innovations, not just in terms of inoculants like the rhizobiums, different types of inoculants that have a synergistic relationship with host plants, but also in terms of how strong those inoculants are able to actually perform, the efficiency of the inoculations, how they're able to survive in these hostile soil environments or in their storage containers for prolonged periods of time. Shelf life has always been a big constraint, especially when it comes to the living microbials. Biofertilizers, biopesticides, biostimulants, and a lot of others. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into some of the biostimulants and some of the ways to make it a little bit easier for farmers to try and sift through the busyness and the chaos of the industry and how many different players are currently in it. And what I want us to try to focus on is shifting definitions away from what industry currently does, which is defining in accordance with what the products are, whether it's humic acids, fulvic acids, plant extracts, microbials, and rather shift it towards what it does. And we heard a bit about this as well in some of the panel sessions earlier today. And I think one of the key things that we need to differentiate these products and really be able to add value on a farm level is to be able to clearly define what the drivers are when it comes to the mechanism of action, and then second to that, what the main benefits are going to be of those specific products. So if we look from a biostimulants perspective, it can range from plant microorganism interactions, nutritional efficiencies, plant metabolism activation, plant health, stress mitigation, and nutritional balance. And again, main benefits could be to try and stimulate growth drivers or reproductive drivers, try to stimulate the drivers responsible for carbohydrate translocation into the growing tubers during tuber bulking phase. And if we have a more in-depth understanding of specifically what the drivers and the modes of actions are, we can then start to have a look at where do we want to start manipulating our crop in terms of the different physiological processes that take place. How can I start utilizing a mode of action linked to key plant physiology drivers linked to yield and quality parameters of the ultimate crop so that I can get a positive return on investment? And this is things like trying to enhance the metabolic performance of the crop itself, reducing stress levels, supporting the natural defense pathways, whether it's systemic acquired resistance or induced systemic resistance, enhancing that microbial interaction that we've spoken about a lot over the last day and a half, and of course, enhancing plant nutrition, trying to increase the efficiencies and reduce the amount of products that we're currently utilizing at a field level. And then if we put all of this together and you've got a good understanding of what the mode of action is, we've got a good understanding of where we want to try and manipulate the physiological processes, we then need to look at the phenology of the plant. What are the specific growth stages of the cultivars that I'm using in my specific region? How does my region change maybe from a week calendar to rather looking at that specific growth stage to understand where am I going to have the best effect by applying one of these products? We're very well versed with understanding the life cycles of our different pests and diseases and where to position the CP products to be able to control them. But when it comes to trying to stimulate the different physiological processes of the plants, there's still a huge knowledge gap between what scientists know and what's practically applicable on the farm and the message that's carried across and how they can use that information effectively. So if we can start positioning the different products that we have and identifying key products that will be able to address key constraints or challenges at specific physiological stages, we're going to have much higher success rates when it comes to these products. The most common thing I hear when people talk about biologicals and farmers specifically is, yes, they work, no, they don't work. It's hit and miss. And this is always going to be the case when you're dealing with a living organism or a biostimulant that can be affected by maybe 50 different factors that are uncontrollable. And this is the ultimate solution that we want to try to get towards. How can we incorporate synergistic solutions that are able to really address these complex challenges that we face? How can we ensure that we're adapting effectively to climate changes with reduced chemistries that we're able to apply? How do we tackle the registration delays that we're currently facing as a South African industry and other regulatory blocks that we might have from a European industry? How do we set up systems in South Africa that might be similar to what America has or Europe has in terms of government support and subsidies for advancing on with sustainable solutions and incorporating them into your farming practices? And finally, this solution needs to be backed by science and by data and needs to show that positive return on investment for a farmer if it's going to be something that is going to be sustainable in the long term. And finally, I'm really excited about this, but I'm able to share with you one of the new biological innovations that are coming to the market in South Africa. Last month, we were able to get the registration of a product called Blue N. And Blue N is a Methylobacterium species with a strain SB23. It has a global patent as an endophytic nitrogen-fixing bacteria. So it colonizes the leaves, it enters through the stomata, it multiplies and colonizes around the chloroplasts and is able to move within the plants, colonizing new tissues. One of the incredible things about it, not only that it's a patent, but it's also the first biostimulant to go through the USDA verification process. And this was a press release that was released back in 2023. So in South Africa, it's first to market now, it's commercially available, but Europe and America both had access to this product prior to it. And what does it mean if you have USDA verification process approval? It means that the bacteria that's within the container was confirmed to be the same strain. And strains are critically important when it comes to microbials, because different species, or the same species, might not have the same final response. The type of exudates, the quantity of exudates, the robustness of that specific species is linked to the strain. And strain specificity is something that we really need to start looking into when we're trying to pair the correct solution to a specific challenge that we're trying to overcome. The second thing is confirming that the quantity is the same as that what's claimed in terms of the colony-forming units. The third, confirming that there are no contaminants or that any contaminants present are below the required threshold levels. And then, of course, confirming that the bacteria is actually able to colonize the plant and provide the intended benefits. Just to share some of the regional results that we've seen. These are results that came from Europe in the past season, and then I've got some of our local South African results that we were able to generate over this past potato season. In Europe, we saw that on average 81% of the trials resulted in positive yield responses, with an average yield response of 2.5 tons. When I start talking to my colleagues that are in Brazil and in America, they're saying that the success rate is higher to 90% of the cases. If we take a look at what we've seen in the South African reality, last year was the first year that we had access to the product to be able to test it at a commercial level on commercial farms. And we found that across the different localities that we tested, Babsfontein, Luteni, Delmas, Kestel, Bethlehem, we had positive increases throughout. We also did some tests combining Blue N with other crop protection products and biofertilizers. And in some instances, you got enhanced responses, and in other instances, you actually got negative responses. Again, talking towards the compatibility that needs to be at the forefront when looking at incorporating biosolutions with our current programs. But it's really amazing to see that a biological product, a bacteria, can have such a powerful effect on increasing yields. An average of 4.5 tons yield increase across these different trial sites, which equated to roughly a 9% increase in yield. So something to definitely look out for, and please, if you guys advise farmers, if you are farmers yourselves, look into this as a potential solution. We're really excited about this for the potato industry. I think it's going to be one of those blockbuster products when it comes to biologicals. And that's it from me. Thank you.